because the Treasurer, Josh Frydenberg, has just stepped up for this address to the Sydney Institute.
Well, thanks very much,
one of his
Jared,
first major speeches as Treasurer.
Congratulations on the incredible work you do in promoting the debate about ideas in the community. Debate about economic ideas, debate about national security ideas, about the social dividend, about some of the cultural issues that are top of mind for many people across the community. So it's a great delight to be here to talk to you. The title of my address is Creating Opportunity and Encouraging Aspiration, the key to a growing economy and a stronger Australia. Aussie rules. What Australia can teach the world. Screamed the headline of The Economist last November. An in-depth analysis of the Australian economy and our 27 years of uninterrupted growth. A growth story with which both sides of politics have contributed to. It's been on the Coalition's watch that the GST was introduced, the waterfront was reformed, the Future Fund was established, and a decade of budget surpluses delivered. Labor oversaw a reduction in tariffs, the floating of the dollar, started key privatisations, and moved away from centralised wage fixation in favour of enterprise bargaining. Critically, key Labor reforms had the support of the Coalition in opposition. It's in this spirit of progress that the Coalition has continued to carry the baton of economic reform since our election more than 5 years ago. Bearing in mind that with half the population being born after 1980, the majority of Australians have never experienced a recession in their working lives. As Australians, we realise how lucky we are to live in this country. But of course, it is not just luck that got us here, and there is no time to be complacent. What is needed is hard work, good policies, and the right values. So today, as Treasurer, I want to share my thoughts on three important areas. First, Australia's remarkable record of uninterrupted economic growth and the importance of this strong performance continuing in light of emerging global risks. Second, the values and the beliefs that underpin and drive the Coalition's approach when it comes to managing the economy. And third, our economic plan, which has aspiration, productivity, growth, and fiscal discipline as its focus. In politics, as in life, you can never get every call right. But what matters is getting the big calls right. And for the Coalition, reforms to the tax system, competition policy, and workplace relations, along with red tape reduction and budget repair, have all been key features of our economic record over the past 5 years. But one of the most significant for the long-term benefit of the country has been our achievements in trade. In 1991, Australia had only one free trade agreement. It was with New Zealand. Today, we have 11 and counting. When we came to government, Australia's free trade agreements covered around a quarter of our total two-way trade. Today, that is a remarkable 70% and will rise to 88% when current negotiations are completed. We have secured agreements with our biggest regional partners, China, Japan and Korea, who between them account for around half of our exports worth more than $175 billion a year. And more recently, the 11-nation Trans-Pacific Partnership was finalised, and I want to pay credit to Malcolm Turnbull for his work there. Global growth is being driven out of the emerging markets of Asia and the region's rising middle class, which is estimated to grow to 3 billion people by 2030. The centre of global economic activity has never been closer, leading some to observe that the tyranny of distance has become the power of proximity. This is good news for the economy as a whole, with 1 in 5 Australian jobs now related to trade. Whether it's the lobster fisherman in Geraldton, the winemaker in the Barossa, the apple farmer in the Derwent Valley, the biotechnology firm in Rockhampton, the precision engineer outside of Melbourne, or the fund manager here in Sydney, they are all winners from the trade agreements that the Coalition has concluded. But it's important to recognise that these trade agreements just don't fall into one's lap. You have to believe in them and the opportunities that they will create, often staring down vested interests who seek to weaken your resolve. It's no secret that our political opponents equivocated over the China FTA, gave up on the Trans-Pacific Partnership, saying it was, quote, dead in the water, and they are now threatening to open up settled agreements and outsource negotiations at the behest of the unions. It's through our commitment to free trade, together with our other policy reforms, that sees the Australian economy in better shape compared to that of which we inherited. Growing faster than any G7 country except the United States, Australia's GDP growth is 2.8%, compared to 2.1% when we came to power. Over 1.2 million new jobs have been created, driving unemployment down to 5.1% compared to 5.7% when Labor was last in office. More importantly, more than half of the 1.2 million jobs that have been created have been filled by women, with a record number of females now in the workforce. They are being joined by greater numbers of young people, with over 100,000 young people getting a job over the last year, which is the highest number on record. Annual average growth in government spending has been reduced to 1.9%, which is the lowest level of any government in 50 years, and half of what it was under Labor. Spending restraint and good economic management are making possible a return to surplus and an end to the decade of deficits. In the words of Standard & Poor's, the government has been recognised for its fiscal prudence and its better budget performance. As MyEFO indicated, the cumulative surpluses over the next 4 years will be just over $30 billion, with surpluses rising to 1% of GDP by 25-26. Net debt as a percentage of GDP will fall from around 18% today to 1.5% over the medium term. This is important because, as the Reserve Bank Deputy Governor Guy Debelle has said, in terms of government, public debt is sustainable until it is not. The strength of the economy is not only helping us deliver record spending on the essential services that people need without increasing taxes, but provides the flexibility and the resilience to respond to challenges as they arise. Just as Howard and Costello's strong budget management prepared the nation for the unexpected shock of the global financial crisis, the Coalition is again rebuilding the buffers that will mean Australia will be better able to absorb the impact of any future economic and financial shock. As the Prime Minister has warned, there are storm clouds in the global economic environment. Persistent trade tensions, high global debt levels, and a contraction in growth in several key economies has changed the global outlook. The German and the Japanese economies recorded negative growth in the September quarter, while China has seen its growth slow through the year to its lowest level since 2009. Overnight, the International Monetary Fund has updated its forecasts, downgrading global growth from 3.7% to 3.5%, noting that the global expansion is weakening at a rate somewhat faster than expected, and saying that risks to a more significant downward correction are rising as investor sentiment has deteriorated, assets have been repriced, and debt burdens have increased. Domestically, the drought is having an impact. The housing market has softened. There are signs that credit growth is being constrained, and the pickup in wages growth remains gradual. While the Reserve Bank of Australia, in its most recent monetary statement in December, said that the Australian economy is performing well, they did point to some uncertainty in the outlook for household consumption. This is where confidence in the housing market is absolutely key. Economists and credit rating agencies have raised the potential adverse impacts to the economy that would flow from a hard landing in the housing market. While regulatory interventions to date have put the housing market, in the words of Governor Lowe, on a more sustainable footing, what the economy can ill afford right now are punitive tax policies that will hurt both supply and demand and are completely inappropriate for the current environment. Ladies and gentlemen, it's against this backdrop that our economic plan, with its focus on growth, productivity, aspiration and budget repair, takes on even greater significance as we navigate the currents ahead. Our values are key. Encouraging the individual and their enterprise. Upholding personal responsibility. Maximising choice. Supporting families. Backing entrepreneurship and small business. Rewarding effort and hard work. Upholding the rule of law, and ensuring that the safety net is there, underpinned by a sense of decency and fairness. These are the values that go to the heart of what the Liberal and National parties are all about. These values are as relevant today as they were when Sir Robert Menzies founded the Liberal Party more than 70 years ago. They are in our DNA. They define our national purpose. And they are why people join the Liberal Party, and they are why people run for office. These values underpin our core beliefs. that the invisible hand of capitalism delivers far more than the dead hand of socialism. That government is not the solution to every problem. That fairness is achieved through the equality of opportunity, not the equality of outcomes. That government has no money of its own, that it's the people's money, and that for every dollar of tax means there's less a dollar that people can keep in their pocket as a reward for their effort and hard work. That we as a nation should be optimistic and outward-looking, confident in the knowledge that our people are our greatest competitive advantage. That communities work from the ground up, not the top down. That intergenerational equity requires fiscal discipline, as the next generation should not pick up the tab for the last. And that people should be encouraged to be self-reliant, but be absolutely assured that the safety net will be there if they need it. These values and core beliefs are reflected in our economic policies and drive our economic plan. Our plan recognises that the private sector employs around 9 out of every 10 working Australians. And we are focused on making sure that businesses stay competitive, that they keep investing, and that they continue to hire more workers. This is the pathway to wealth creation. This is the pathway to job creation. This is the pathway to reducing inequality, and this is the pathway to higher wages. And it can only be achieved by boosting productivity through lower taxes, targeted spending, flexible labour markets, significant infrastructure investments, and opening up new markets here and abroad. This is all about expanding our productive capacity so that as an economy we can grow the pie, providing a better future for all Australians. Our plan, which is working and is being rolled out over the medium term, will deliver legislated tax relief for 10 million Australians, which will see a whole tax bracket abolished, and 94% of people in Australia who are working paying no more than 32.5 cents in the dollar. It will deliver fast-tracked legislated tax relief for 3.3 million small and medium-sized businesses, employing around 7 million people, and providing an instant asset write-off, encouraging them to invest in their business. Once-in-a-generation reforms we are delivering to the distribution of the GST, creating more equitable and sustainable outcomes for all states and territories and all Australians. We are delivering increased access to finance for small businesses with a new $2 billion securitisation fund, while cutting around $6 billion in red tape and ensuring that small businesses get paid on time and are not used as a bank by big business. We're enhancing productivity, competition, and competitiveness in the construction sector with the reinstatement of the Australian Building Construction Commission and the establishment of the Registered Organisation Commission as a cop on the beat to maintain the rule of law. We are funding over 500 infrastructure projects with a record $75 billion in infrastructure investment, including a second airport for Sydney after 50 years of indecision, the Melbourne Airport Rail Link, the Inland Rail, upgrades to the Bruce Highway in Queensland, the Metronet project in Perth, road corridor projects in Adelaide, and bridge replacement projects in Tasmania. A $1 billion urban congestion fund to reduce the average commute times and ease the burden on our public transport system as our population grows and the cost of congestion in our capital cities is estimated to double between now and 2030. An unprecedented $200 billion investment in the defence industry, promoting advanced manufacturing and creating jobs in every corner of the country. A better deal for energy consumers by removing the ability of networks to game the system, simplifying retail offers, underwriting new generation, and expanding the iconic Snowy Hydro project with the largest renewable energy storage project in the Southern Hemisphere. Strengthening the rules that apply to multinationals, bringing $7 billion of additional sales into the Australian tax net each year. Creating an additional 300,000 apprenticeships through the $1.5 billion Skilling Australians Fund.
OK, we'll leave that there for the moment. That was live from Sydney. Treasurer Josh Frydenberg speaking there about the government's economic record. We're expecting the Shadow Treasurer Chris Bowen will speak this afternoon, so we'll hear from Labor later.